Look at that. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Happy Tuesday evening to you. Yours truly, DJ Staples 93. I'd like to welcome everybody out here for hanging out and for joining me on this special Wednesday night edition of my air quotes artist spotlight. With the flyer here on screen, these are the folks that we're going to talk to today. Don't know how this is going to go. I already prefaced that I do have some questions I want to ask these gentlemen. I don't know how it's going to go, but I can assure you it's going to be a lot of fun. There's going to be a lot of F-bombs. So if you have any kids in the chat, you might want to give them some earmuffs. Shout out to everybody that's already watching. Dan Impressions, my man. Chris, S810X, how are you, buddy? 13 years old, rocking out. Metal Social Sunday, Britt, thank you. We got Co-Surfer. We got Anne-Marie, the moderator. Chris, the moderator. So thank you to everybody for hanging out. Without further ado, I'm going to welcome these guys into the room one at a time. I'm going to do it in alphabetical order. I don't want to upset anybody. The one guy got asked to come in here first or so on and so forth. So anyway, we're going to talk guitars. We're going to talk music. And I hope you guys have a lot of fun. If you have questions, be sure to put them here in the chat. And we'll do our best to, have any one of these lovely gentlemen answer the questions for you. So with that being said, like I said, in alphabetical order, I'm going to welcome them to the screen. First, out of the Florida area, I'm going to welcome the man known as John Allen III, or for short, they just call him J3 or J Thrizzle. What's up, Jay? How are you?
What's up? I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad that we finally got you here. We had a lot of things we had to try and figure out, but we made it happen.
I was trying to build the Death Star, man. What can I say? Didn't work out for me today.
It's not always easy, but I'm glad we were able to figure it out. So thank you. Yep. The next gentleman we want to bring into the room, first, J3, played with Tommy Lee, Methods of Mayhem, appeared on The Tonight Show, not once, not twice, but how many? Three times. Three times. Yeah, there you go. And now doing the sound for the Struts on tour. So we'll touch base on a lot of that stuff. But the next man in alphabetical order, what can we say about this guy? He's a legit nice guy. He's a killer player.
So nice.
He was in the band Trickster. He's toured with Eric Martin of Mr. Big. He's done the Def Leppard thing. I mean, he's done it all to death, right? So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, the one, the only, Mr. Steve Brown. How did I do, Steve? Was that okay?
You did good, but you forgot the one, the only, the mighty. So one strike. But yeah, great to be here. Thanks for having me. And, here we are. It's June of 2021. I felt like I was in a wacky episode of The Twilight Zone, and it seems like that episode is slowly coming to an end. So it's great to be here.
For your approval.
Exactly, my man. And and DJ, I'm just forewarning you for the amount of crazy humor that's going to happen in the next hour or so. It should be quite delightful. And as you said before, if there are any kids watching, please get off this computer now, because it's definitely, I would say, 16 and below.
PG-16.
Yeah,
PG-16 for sure. Get your earmuffs.
It's 2021. We all know what fucking time it is. Let's have some fun.
That a boy. There we go. Yeah. Let's bring the next person into the room. Another good Jersey boy, solo artist. Yeah, right. Solo artist. He did some writing with Lillian Garcia of WWE. He's currently in a band called Super Trans Am that is a 70s arena rock tribute. Currently in another band called Lifespeed. He does some solo shit. He does it all. And he gets told every day he looks like Keith Urban. So without further ado, there he is. Fix the hair. What's up, brother? James McGill, everybody.
How are you?
Good to see you, sir. How are you?
Just living in Australia. How you get your own props straight? Your little sound machines?
I didn't know we were supposed to bring trinkets.
Right. Chatskas.
Let's pretend we didn't talk a few minutes before we're going live. How are you, James?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Thanks for having me. What's up, Steve? What's up, Thrizzle?
Hey,
how are you? What's going on?
And of course, we're going to welcome the next guy in the room. He's an amazing musician, like all the rest of y'all. He's a Guitar World senior editor, I believe. Also a member of the Super Trans Am band. And he's got a great set of legs. So, right, it's true, right? We can all agree he's got some nice looking stems. How about it, everybody? Let's hear it for Paul Riario. Give it up for Paul. We need I need applause sound effects.
I'm so honored to be with such esteemed gentlemen. Look at these guys. Handsome fellas. My goodness. Yeah, I love it.
Using the term gentleman very loosely.
Well, you know, I've known these guys forever, and we are representing Bergen County, New Jersey.
Strong.
Sure.
BC strong.
BC.
Strong.
There we go.
I'm honored to be among such fine fellas here. It's great.
Well, I'm glad you're here, and I appreciate you taking the time to participate in this. So thank you very much, Paul. Last and certainly not least, what can I say nice about this guy? Because it's not often I say anything nice about him whatsoever. Help me out now. Works for Dean. He's the VP at Dean Guitars in the Armadillo, Luna, and Dean. Yeah. What more can we say about this guy? He's got a great beard, right?
He's got a great George Michael beard.
Yeah, thank you. That's what I was waiting for. I was a crappy setup by me, and he's drinking his wine. So how about it? Luna and Dean Guitars, the one and the only, Mr. Eric Stewart. What's up, handsome?
Eric.
I gotta tell you, buddy, you're a hot mess. I love it.
I certainly am. I know.
Let's look at that gray beard, buddy. Come on, show it.
I'm trying to look like my dad if I knew what he looked like. When. So, yeah.
Tears sadness surrounded by laughter.
Turning tragedy into comedy. So how are you guys? Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday.
It's nice to have you all here.
Whip them out Wednesday, right? We all remember that. Why not?
Absolutely. Who's gonna go first?
Brad still has the last sticker on the back of the 72 Pinto.
Don't judge me. So listen, I'm going to ask you guys. I want to ask you a few questions, and I hope you answer them. But by all means, I'd love to hear some stories that you guys got as well. But look, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be basic at the beginning, but I'm going to ask you all, and I'm going to go in the circle. We'll start with you, Jay, up top. I want to know. I know you may all think this is a lame question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Is what got you started into music? Like, what did you hear the first time that you're like, holy shit, I want to do that? What was it for you, Jay?
I mean, I heard music in my house since I was a baby, basically. I mean, my parents or my dad was always listening to Pink Floyd, Zeppelin, Steppenwolf. So that was kind of always there. And I don't know if at such an early age, my mom's like, oh, you should play trumpet. And I was like, I don't really want to. I don't know about that. And I went, we went to the music store in town, and I got a trumpet, and I couldn't really get a sound out of it. It was like, and the teacher was like, hey, maybe bring him back in a year when he's got more breath. And and then like a year later, her sister, my mother's sister, gave her like a broken acoustic guitar, which of course I commandeered and, started like, strumming on it. But the funny story that I tell everybody that they knew that I should probably have a guitar was my mom would put on the Billy Joel, The Stranger record from the beginning, and I would just grab the tennis racket and run all over the living room. They're like, maybe we should, But I mean, pursuing it as a career was Jimi Hendrix. Okay. I saw Jimi Hendrix at 11. I saw, Jimmy Plays Berkeley, and that completely fried my brain and my face off. And I was like, I'll never do that, but I want to try.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of it. And it really wasn't like, being famous or making money. It was just aspiring to that. What he did was just, particularly just the playing in that movie. It was like, a month before he passed. So yeah, I mean, and then went on into a lot of other things, but it was really guitar that, I think all of us sort of shared that same, at some point, got in our heads pretty young that we were going to chase this, pretty hard. So that's my story, the early days.
I think it's pretty accurate that we've all at least tried out to air guitar to a tennis racket at some time. No,
it was leaning against the wall. So I just
For the record, mine was an Yvonne Goolagong. True story. Absolutely true story.
Wilson Wood.
There you go. You got Wood. What about you, Steve? What was your first tennis racket?
I still have it in my garage back there. Yeah, music, man. Again, like J3, you know, I gotta say, I think we all grew up, you know, born late 60s, early 70s. For my money, look, man, I say it, and I will say it till the day I die. Growing up in the late 60s, early 70s, 80s was the best time for music, for being inspired by music. And for me, it was certainly, you know, two bands that completely changed my life forever. And forever I'm indebted to them for it. It's Kiss. The record was Rock and Roll Over. And Van Halen 1. Those two records, I heard them both in 1978. And as I like to say, you know, it got me running with the devil, and I'm still rocking and rolling and partying every day.
There you go.
I see what you did there. Very nice.
And it was, you know, again, it was one of those things where it was so powerful, and it was like a scene out of a movie when my sister-in-law's brother lent me Kiss Rock and Roll Over. All I didn't hear anything. I didn't hear any music yet, but I saw the cover, and I was like, what is this? It was, you know, talking to me, like, you know, Gene Simmons coming out of the cartoon going, Steven, go home and listen. Yeah. And I still remember it like yesterday, getting home to my house, Paramus, New Jersey. I go up to my I think it was my brother's room. We had this little record player, and I put the record on, and it was I Want You. And I remember hearing it. It was not really nice, the acoustic guitars. And I'm like, oh, this is cool. It sounds like the Beatles, kind of sounds like Rod Stewart. And then all of a sudden, man, the drum filled. It was like, dude, I swear there was bombs going off. And my mind was blown. And, you know, and then a couple months later, I heard Van Halen 1 and Eruption and, you know, Run with the Devil, I'm the One. And it was game over for me. Really, it was that quick and that immediate. Now, I got to say, probably 6 months after all that, I was down in Maywood, New Jersey at Musically Yours Music Shop taking guitar lessons.
Eddie.
And it's, you know, my life's never been the same ever since that year and those two records.
I think for sure there's definitely a common denominator of Eddie Van Halen amongst all of us, and I'm going to touch base on all that a little bit. But before, like I said, James, you're up. What started it all for you?
For me, it was like my grandmother was from Ireland. She always had the accordions and violins around, and there'd be a lot of traditional Irish music played in my house and everything. But I can honestly remember, like, my mother just introduced me to Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons as being like one of the first. Wow. Really, like, the music that I would actually remember as like a young, like, I think it was 4, believe it or not, 4 years old, trying to put the record on the record player and play Let's Hang On over and over and over again. I just loved Frankie Valli as a kid. But as far as like, you know, going past that and learning how to play, it was, you know, the same was Kiss, Van Halen, very big Richie Blackmore guy. I love Richie Blackmore, Deep Purple. I mean, love the early Rainbow stuff, and obviously Zeppelin.
Sure.
You know, there's really nothing bad about any of it. You know,
yeah, right.
It's all good. I wish there was more of it today, to be honest with you.
Well, we'll have to get into the whole Greta Van Fleet Led Zeppelin conversation later.
I don't know if that conversation.
No, I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. I just saw your faces like, oh, this fucking guy. No, I won't. All right, Paul, your turn. What got you started?
So, I mean, I'll keep it brief. I have a very non-musical family, which it shows in my playing. But anyway, I do remember coming down to the dinner table when I decided to become a musician and told my parents that I wanted a guitar for Christmas. And the whole table roared with laughter, like, "Oh, we have a musician in the family. Oh, this is a new one." You know.
Yeah.
So that was funny, but the truth is, when it comes down to the music, you know, I have, you know, my mother is Belgian, dad is Italian, and so I spent a lot of time in Europe. So the two biggest influences for me was the first Boston album, and the Sweet Desolation Boulevard, which was huge in Europe. So those two bands, like, so it was a bit of glam rock and arena rock, kind of influenced my life. So it was just, keep in mind, it was the late 70s. It was the height of Star Wars and all that thing. And, just being able to hear a guitar to make these sounds that no other instrument can make. And I'm sure all of you guys can attest to that. I was like, listening to, like, when you listen to the first Boston album and you listen to the pick scrapes, all those things going, they sounded like laser beams. And I was just like, oh my God. As a pre-high school kid, I wanted to make those sounds on a guitar, and just like, and even you listen to the early Sweet albums, all that flanging, it just sounded like an instrument that was from out of this world. And that's what I gravitated toward. It wasn't so much the proficiency or anything else. It was more of being able to achieve kind of guitar sounds that really attracted me to the instrument. So that really influenced me more than anything else.
Eric, I promise, Eric, by the way, I won't ask you last on every question. I'll try and mix it up so you're not just sitting there bored.
We're going to steal from all these guys. I mean, we do covers, right? I mean,
Yeah. So tell me your early influences.
No, I mean, for me, my grandmother sang in church choir, and she played piano. And I always remember beating on the piano down in Long Beach Island when I was, when I was still in diapers. And my uncle played really good guitar, and my father always used to brag how he could play Yankee Doodle Dandy and Dixie at the same time on guitar. And I was like, well, I'll love to try to do that one. It's never going to happen, obviously. So that was kind of the musical background of the family. And then I remember seeing Prince on MTV Live, and he was doing like I Would Die For You or something like that. He had the guitar, that beat up piece of shit telly that he plays, and he was just, just going to town. And I was like, I want to do that. Whatever he's doing, I want to do that. And it was Prince, and then obviously Van Halen 1. When I heard Eruption, I thought it was like a keyboard. I didn't know what the hell it was. I was like, that doesn't sound like any kind of guitar I ever heard before. And then my mom, she listened to like Fleetwood Mac and Jeff Beck. She got me into Jeff Beck. She got me into Stevie Ray Vaughan. They listened, Big Stones, the Beatles. And my father at that time was really big into country, Waylon Jennings and Willie Nelson. So it was just like this big hodgepodge of stuff. And that's pretty much what got me into it. And then I remember one Easter, my brother got 5150 from Van Halen. And I remember he was going to go see them in 86, and I was only like 13, so I couldn't go. I was so pissed off, man. I'm just like, I think my first concert was Monsters of Rock. And I saw Metallica come out, and that opened me up to all the heavy stuff after that. So yeah, man, just a bunch of different things that I wanted to, I wanted to be on stage, and if I couldn't be on stage, I wanted to be doing something with music, And now here I am with you humps. Look at you guys, you're beautiful, all of you.
Do you guys? You know what? I'll start with you, Eric. Do you remember the first guitar you ever had? The first guitar you ever bought?
The first guitar I ever had, my uncle gave it to me. I was 9 years old. It was a beat up classical piece of shit. I didn't know how to tune it. That I could shoot an arrow off the action. It was so ridiculously high. And the first electric guitar that I got, my parents got it for me. It was a Montoya. I don't even know what the hell it was.
Me too, bro. Same one.
It was like 15 pounds. It was just brutal. Yeah. The first real. The first real guitar I got a Kramer Focus 2000 from Victor's House of Music on sale for $289. And that was like my first real, it had a Floyd Rose on it. I'm like, wow, what the hell is this thing? And oh, my shit doesn't go out of tune. And I could make all these crazy dive bomb sounds. Didn't know how to play shit on it, but I could sure make a lot of noise with it.
Sure.
So yeah, that was in the days of Kramer right there, man.
Paul, what about you?
So to answer this question, I need to give a little bit of backstory. So I first started playing guitar right before I hit high school. And then when I hit high school, I sat in the back of the class, and the next thing I know, I got, this guy next to me just said like, hey, I heard you play guitar. You want to come and, jam and be in a band with me? I was like, well, yeah, sure. All right. So why not? After that, I had to press my dad to get me an electric guitar. And I mean, we're talking about my first electric guitar, right? Not my first acoustic.
Whichever.
I'll just talk about my first electric. But anyway, at the time, I remember going. My dad took me to the music store after much prodding. He didn't want to take me at all. So he brought me to the music store. Back then, and this is like, oh my God, this is before the Civil War, I think. Anyway,
You look good.
Les Pauls were, and that was my dream guitar, was having a Gibson Les Paul. Les Pauls, a Sunburst Les Pauls, which is what I wanted, was $500 at Sam Ash. So I remember we were going through it. First of all, the first thing is the guy at the Sam Ash store, he was like, my dad, he goes, well, he's just starting out, he needs this PV guitar. And he brings out this PV guitar, and I look at the guy, and I look at my dad, I go, no. And I was just like, he's like, okay, well then we'll find another guitar. And I saw the Gibson Les Paul for $550, and I was like, I want that. But my dad's like, that's too much money. If you buy that one, I'll buy you that, but you only get a 10-watt amp, a 10-watt PV amp. And I was like, And then the guy says, well, I have an Aria Pro here, an Aria Pro 2, and you can get the Bandit 65 PV amp. Bandit 65 Aria Pro 2. And that was my first fucking guitar. I was being practical, right? I needed the wattage.
That's great. What about you, Steve?
My first guitar was a rental guitar at Musically Yours. And a funny story with that was, when I went down to take guitar lessons, I didn't have a guitar. The guy behind the counter goes, "Oh, so you need to rent a guitar? Do you? And he goes to my mother. He goes to my mom. Is he a lefty or righty?" And she goes, well, he's a lefty. And the guy goes, it'll be cheaper if he learns how to play righty. So hence why I play guitar righty now. I can thank my mom for that. But
nice.
Yeah, and that was just the basic, whatever the rental was, some piece of shit, acoustic. But then 2 years, I guess a year later, for Christmas, I got the $69.95 special from the Sears catalog, which was the guitar and amp. Yeah. And I got the guitar and amp, and then I guess my brothers bought me the Christmas of 1979. They bought me a little Big Muff pedal. And I remember that, man. I remember that Christmas getting Foreigner Double Vision, my guitar, and the little Big Muff pedal. I remember first time ever plugging that combination in and just hitting an A chord. And it just was like the coolest thing in the world, And I spent a couple years on that Sears guitar. I think maybe it was a Harmony. I think that was the brand that they were selling or something. But then I moved on to my first real good guitar. Well, real decent guitar was a 1982 Ibanez Iceman that I bought at Sam Ash, New Jersey. And I just recently got it back. It's back there, and very happy to be reunited with that, because that was the guitar that, I started Trickster with back in 1983 and played my first couple shows with, and was way too big for my body. But, still to this day, the guitar sounds great. It's one of the Japanese Korina, Ibanez guitars. So I'm grateful to have it back. Thank you, Charles Maggio and Dave Malone from Paramus, New Jersey, for making that happen.
Malone.
There you go. James?
For me, we always had like acoustic guitars hanging around. I can't even tell you what they were. When my aunt taught me how to play down in the valley's so low. But I think my first electric guitar that I bought from Aaron Nadler for, I forget how much. It was like, I don't even know what kind of guitar it was. But it was like, it wasn't a full size guitar. It was like one of those like junior electrics with crazy buttons on it and stuff. I couldn't even tell you what it was. And then after that, my mom, she bought me, just like Erica Montoya, from I think it was Music World or something in Rutherford. But my first good guitar I got was 83, and it was a Charvel double humbucker, which I graciously got back from J3. JPD helped me get that back.
The body anyway.
The body. Yeah, the body. The neck is shot.
The neck didn't make it, baby.
Neck didn't make it. No, it was terrible. Boom.
Wow.
Yeah.
Most bowed neck in the history of time.
Yeah, and that was stupid because I tried to put a Floyd Rose on that where it shouldn't have had a Floyd Rose on it. But hey, we all live and learn and make our stupid mistakes when we're growing up. But I mean, I know each one of you have made like a stupid mistake on a guitar that you regret. Probably still do because I do. But my first one was the 83 Charvel. So,
all right, Jay Thrizzle, you're up.
On that note, I'm going to get to an early guitar. It's not the first guitar, but I had the broken acoustic. Then that was traded for a fixed acoustic. They were both worth $49. But my first real electric was an Ibanez Studio from 1980, which we bought at Alex Music in New York City for like $200. It was basically a Strat and a Les Paul. Same thing, Steve. It was like 24 frets and the neck was in the next state, and I was like trying to but what I consider to be like my first like super real guitar was a Kramer Pacer, an 81 Kramer Pacer that I got at Sam Ash and Paramus. Regular tremolo on it, white maple neck. It's pre Eddie Van Halen, it's pre Kramer taking the ball end off of the headstock, so it was a Strat headstock. And to illustrate how stupid I was with this guitar, not only did I put a Floyd on it and destroy it and have to fix it with bolt hole putty twice, but later on scalloped the neck during my 6-month Yngwie phase.
Good old Yngwie.
So, I mean, you know, a real 81 Pacer's, you know, worth a few bucks. It's a pretty cool guitar, but yeah, I still have the body, but the neck. I destroyed it. I tried to drill the locking nut holes like freehand with a drill. Like it's like like no, not really.
do any of you guys remember the very first song that you were able to play in its entirety? No, not so much.
I mean, for me, it was probably Pete Seeger or something because I was learning all this folk stuff, acoustic. So it's probably, you know, This Land Is Your Land or something like that. Not very romantic, I know. But
hey, whatever it is, whatever it takes.
But I could play the whole thing.
You know, back then for me it was all pieces. Like just riffs would sound cool because there was not a lot of people played. We were so young, you couldn't find a drummer or anybody else to play with. So you're just learning pieces of music. And then as soon as it would get hard, I'd fucking put it down, pick up another song. And go,
You're still doing that to this day, aren't you?
Fuck you.
I apologize. How about the rest of y'all? Do you remember it?
I can tell you is that, you know, I was very fortunate because my first ever real guitar teacher was this woman, and she was very cool because she kind of looked like Brian May from Queen, and
wow.
And I
real
thought, yeah, so I
Mrs. May.
Yeah, I immediately had this very weird androgynous love for her. So anyway, but her big thing was that she always, every time I showed up for my lesson, she was like, she grabbed my guitar, she untuned it, and she goes, "Here you go, listen," and she would just tune it up, just really quick, and just listen to what I'm doing. So she would do that all the time. So it developed my ear by listening to her doing that all the time. And then, but the great thing was, you know, we went through the usual, you know, your first year of lessons, and then she would like make me do the normal Mel Bay kind of crap. But she goes, "Listen," and I would protest sometimes. I was like, "I want to learn rock and roll," and she would just like, she's like, "Listen, if you want to learn rock and roll, you got to learn this first. And if you do that," then she goes, basically, I'll give you an example. She goes, "You do that, you'll be able.
Here we go.
You'll be able to play things like this." And I immediately recognized that as Rock Lobster, and I just sat there. I was like, "Whoa, that's amazing! That's an amazing riff."
We were at the beach.
I went home. I went home and just sat trying to nail that riff.
It's a great riff.
So when I came back for next week's lesson, she goes, "Well, did you learn this whole page?" I go, "No." But
But
she's like, so she sit there, she bit her tongue. She goes, "All right, you get a pass." So that was my lessons, the way I learned.
how about you, Steve?
I had a similar situation like that when I was taking lessons where the teacher was giving me the whole Mel Bay trip and I was not digging it at all. And
Who did?
Yeah, it wasn't. I couldn't. I was like, man, this ain't rock and roll. Where's the high heels and where's the spike hair and where's the power chords? And I didn't even know what the fuck that was. But I knew that while I was sitting there, and I remember this guy, and he was a nice guitar teacher. He had a jazz thing, and he always had funny looking socks. He would wear dress socks, and he'd cross his leg like this and play. And I remember once he was eating a Chef Boyardee spaghetti and meatballs while I was like trying to. And after that lesson, I told my mother, I said, "Mom, you need to tell him I want to learn Kiss songs." So the next lesson, I came back with Rock and Roll Over. And my mother said, "Bill, Steven wants to learn. He wants to learn these songs." And he was like, "Okay." And I remember, man, he put the record on and it was Calling Dr. Love. And he showed me, the basic, of course, 3-4 chords. And I saw him play it. And that was when it kind of registered in my mind that this isn't as hard as you might think. Like playing guitar, like once you learn those, especially power chords, it's kind of like it opens up the world to where you guys know, man, when we learn Smoke on the Water, when you learn Iron Man, shit, in the 90s, all those, grunge bands and pop punk bands, they made bazillions just playing power chords. You didn't even have to fucking play guitar solos. So that was it, man. And so I learned a little bit of Kiss, and then I also remember what was really cool, what really got me going, and I learned a lot about rhythm, was I learned Chuck Berry, the 12-bar blues. Whether it was trying to play Batman or Johnny B. Good, that's what really helped me. So those were the, probably the two first things that I learned. And it was, again, man, I guess it's something, you're born the way you are. And I've never been at a loss for words. So I voiced my disapproval to my mother. "This guy's not teaching me the shit I want to learn. You better fix it, Mom." And she did. So, God love Carol Brown for always being, always having my back.
There you go. Didn't your parents just celebrate an anniversary recently?
They did. Yes, today is 65 years. The great Carol and Charles Brown.
God bless them, man. That's good for them. That's amazing.
Still rocking and rolling, man. Still rocking and rolling. It's a beautiful thing.
Wow.
That's awesome.
That's great. Who's left? J3. Do you remember the first song you may have played in its entirety?
I think it was probably like I said, from the Pete Seeger book, but I will tell you a funny story on Steve's subject matter of like hating the book that you're learning from and what the teacher wants you to do. My next door neighbor was a guitar teacher and also a oboist, and she played timpani, which uniquely prepared her to make me unhappy as a guitar student. So,
which is really easy. Which is really easy to travel with too. I'm just gonna grab my timpani.
Yeah.
What do you want, oboe or timpani? So anyway, like I brought her Stairway to Heaven. I'm like, I really want to, I know you're into the folk thing. Let's do this. And she's listening. Like she's never heard, doesn't even know who Led Zeppelin is. She's way older. And it gets to the band comes in and the solo happens. And she goes, "Wouldn't it be nice if it just went back to the intro instead of all that noise in the end?" And the same thing, Steve, I went straight to my mom. I'm like, "We're done with her." Like new teacher time. Like, so
Move on.
I was, the basic stuff, Born to Be Wild, trying to play Foxy Lady and failing. But I could get through them. But yeah, I definitely bit off more than I could chew there, like trying to play the,
Yeah. What about you, James Patrick? Did I ask you already?
No, you didn't.
Save the best for last.
Yeah, I don't know about that. So I was fortunate to study with the late great Don Manzo, and he was one of those guys. He started you off with like a little bit of the Mel Bay thing, but he knew that you weren't going to pay attention to that because he knows every one of his students wanted to run before they walk, you know? So he sort of, and he had a crazy way of like, he came up with almost his own type of tab before tab was even tab. Like it's kind of strange. I'll show you a little bit. I think I have something here. What is this? Like he would just come up with like crazy ways of how to just like write stuff. Like it's like cheat notes or like, you know, like comes like with intro and then it chords and
jeez.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. You all would understand it. But so studying with him, and then I guess the first song I played through was probably "Let My Love Open the Door" by Pete Townsend.
Wow.
It was a complete song that I actually got through. Yeah.
That's a bit of an odd choice. That's such a weird song.
I know.
I mean, you would think Dream On before you got to My Love.
Well, I mean, I'm sure that I'm you know, maybe my memory doesn't, you know, serve me correctly, but I mean, that for some reason just sticks out in my head as being the one. It might have been even either that or the Beatles Yesterday. Between that, I think the Beatles Yesterday might be a little more, but I just remember that one as being like, I just did it, I got it, you know. Maybe I'll even half-ass all of them, but I'm just saying, not cheat and play through everything.
Get through the whole thing.
I mean, I've you know, we've all like learned all the riffs and everything before, but to say that you went from start to finish without, you know, doing it, I think that would be that one for me. You know.
Now the people go ahead. No, go ahead, Paul.
I was going to interject. You know, it's funny that you just kind of piqued my memory. Like that's when I knew I wanted to be a lead guitar player. Is when I, you know, with that same teacher that I had after I went through that Mel Bay thing, you know, she put me and one of my friends in grammar school. We both were learning from her guitar from her. So what happened was she put us in a concert. And so my first real songs that I actually ever really played through was When I'm 64, which I am now, and and Maxwell Silver Hammer, and I played the melody line while my buddy from school played the accompaniment. So that I can say those were my two first songs I actually played through, and that was kind of like the foundation blocks, where you just kind of know it's like, wow, this is kind of cool. This is what I want to do. Yeah.
Very cool. Now, Eric, the people in the chat are making sure I didn't forget you, but I think we said before you played little bits, a little song.
Yeah, I was thinking back about it, and it was probably "Sympathy for the Devil" at a high school jam thing that we were doing called Glenstock back in the courtyard, and it was "Sympathy for the Devil" was probably the first song because it was like, you know, 3 chords, and I'm just like, there's another guitar player there. I'm like, okay, cool, what are you doing? And you know, followed him along, and then the first piece of music that it was always getting requests from my mom would be like, why don't you learn Stairway? And my father would be like, why don't you learn that Willie song? And I think the first piece of music that I finished was, the Randy Rhoads D acoustic solo. I think that was like the first thing I ever that was like, I accomplished something, and that's the only time I'm ever going to try classical again,
Very cool. All right, so I'm going to ask a question, and I'm not even going to go in any kind of order. I want you guys just to answer as freely as you choose. I want to know how you guys, somebody tell all of you, whatever, how do you all know each other? Let's get into that.
Hey, God.
Yeah, I want to know the crux of all of this.
It would just be from playing guitar in Jersey and the cover band scene, and and I remember when Trickster hit it, that was huge for us. Back then, and I knew Paul from Cloud9, right, and Victor's.
I got the tapes.
Yeah.
What's a tape?
Go put them on right now.
I can't. I don't have a cassette player, but I have all of them.
Yeah, it's a weird vibe, man. Like guitar players, especially in Bergen County and Paramus and everything up home. It's like it's a different it's like a gang. It's like, you know, they have your motorcycle gangs or you have whatever, you know, going on. You're gonna be like, hey, you play pretty good. Do you know so and so? Do you know Paul? If you remember Paul Riari, do you know Steve Brown? Do you know James? He plays in this band. You know, he plays in 3-piece. You know Jay. And then you're old enough to go to the clubs. It's just you meet everybody and you just start hanging out. It's just a different kind of camaraderie. It's speaking a different language, I think, too. You know, it's a universal language, which is just too fucking cool. You can play something for anybody if they speak, you know, Mandarin or whatever. They're gonna relate to you in some sort of way through music.
Sure.
So let me. I'm going to put this all on. Maybe I'll try and see if I can put this all in perspective. Being that I may be the oldest out of all of you guys, I'm not really sure, but I could be the oldest. Anyway, you know, when I was younger and, you know, just kind of finding my way and making my way through the club circuit, I can tell you that, you know, I was in my bands and I was just doing my thing. But at the time, I always remembered Steve, you know, Trickster, you guys were huge. You know, we'd go out to see you at the China Club in Hillsdale. You guys
Studio One.
They were baby Van Halen, but really the standout musician was always Steve. Steve was always like, if you wanted the Jersey version of Eddie Van Halen, it was Steve Brown. I mean, you were fantastic. You really you knew how to put on a show. You had the smile. You had everything. Like, it was almost any of us guitar players were out in the crowd were like, well, that's the guy we want to be because he's gonna do something. And then you know, so Trickster was really kicking around, and then J3. I mean, what can I say about you, dude? I mean, my God, you were in every band. You were either behind,
Too many bands.
or you were on top of it. So it was like Jay was always the musician's musician. It was just like, so I mean, like you wanted to be that guy. You know, Jay was always around, and then coming up the ranks, you have James over here, and then you have Eric, who were much younger. And what happened is James eventually became a lot like J3, a musician's musician. You know, and now we play in a band together, and it's fun. And then of course I have Eric over here as well. You know, who is young, but this kid could play any Van Halen lick. I mean, Eric was fantastic, and then eventually he found his way into my band. I mean, these young fuckers, my God, you must murder these kids. But I mean, that was like, and all of these guys. I mean, all of these guys were on. I mean, like, it was very nice to see all these guys on the scene, really just making their mark, becoming one of the pretty much the scenesters and the guys you want to aspire to, or even the guys you wanted to be in a band with. So when I say that I am humbled to be around these really four great musicians, I really mean it. I've watched them just move up the ranks, become famous, make their mark, and just do their thing. I'm like, you don't get better than these four guys here.
Oh man,
I remember, as silly as it is, when I had the I roadied for you. I think it was your guitar tech when you were in Cloud9. And I remember you. I was learning those damn. I was like, Paul, is this how you play the solo on this song from your freaking cassette tape?
That's actually a funny story. So when I was in that band Cloud9, and I was recording all the stuff, Eric was this young fucking upstart, and he learned all my solos, and I'm like, look at this kid. This kid's fucking great.
The understudy.
He knew all the nuance and stuff like that. But I mean, like, again, it's just like it's very humbling when someone else just actually bothers to learn something that you did, or even just recognizes some of the music you put out. So, fuck, that's why you're a musician, right? It's just it's that kind of stuff. It's awesome.
Steve, I need Steve to teach me how to play Bad Girl because I got to get that riff.
Oh, it's quite easy. I'll show you. It's five easy lessons, 1995 a piece. I take PayPal and Venmo.
Steve Brown and Esteban together, 1995.
But like Paul was saying, that's the coolest thing. And over the last year or so, I've been doing a lot of interviews, and there's this great book out called Nothing But a Good Time, which, Paul, I'm sure you know that your compadres wrote. And a lot of it had to do with, the whole hard rock scene of the 80s.
Yep.
And what I talk about, and I've said this for years, the difference of the East Coast, especially the New York, New Jersey, and LA thing. And what you were talking about, of all of us, it was a brotherhood, and we were all like, we would be there to help each other. Where I can tell you this, the first time when we went out to do the first Trixter record out in LA, and we experienced meeting these bands and the competition and the level of assholes these guys were. And I still see these guys. And I remember, man, do you remember when you met me? And they were like, I remember when we were doing our first record, we went to this thing called the Foundations Forum in LA. And it was the big music, like hard rock convention.
Like a convention.
We were the new band coming in. We're in LA recording, and all these other bands, and I'm not going to mention any names, but, all these bands are like looking at us, who are these young fucking kids coming in? And I was like, wow, man, this really, and I'd heard about that, how, man, LA is it ain't like, going to Mingles in Sayreville, New Jersey, or hanging out at China Club, and then going to Suburban Diner to have disco fries. It was a totally different thing on all levels. And so I learned that. And one thing I did learn, and especially when Trixter started becoming successful and then meeting guys, let's talk about, the South Jersey guys, the Bon Jovi guys, John Bon Jovi, Richie Sambora, Snake Sabo, Rachel Bolan, Scotty Hill. These guys, Zakk Wylde, no matter what the success level. And like when we met John Bon Jovi, it was right at the cusp when Slippery When Wet was just about to take off. And that guy was the coolest guy in the world. We gave him our demo tapes, and he introduced us to the Skid Row guys. And he told Snake, take care of Steve, take care of these guys, look out for him. Next thing you know, like Skid Row gets signed. And there, they go, hey, man, you got to hire our lawyer. He's going to help you out. And John said this and blah, 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 and Doc. And this shit would never happen in LA. And it was like, dude, for me, when, and I think John and James and you guys would know, when
hey, what's up?
Here she is.
There she is. She's camera shy, I'm sure.
No, I did not.
Say hi to everybody out there. Give them a dance. Give them one of your rock and roll dances.
Come on.
Yeah.
All right. So, but getting back to it, man, like what we always tried. All right, you're great. Daddy's on MTV Live. But
That's great.
What I always tried to do, because I learned that, is like, and getting later on meeting Eddie Van Halen. No matter how big and famous you are or you think you are, you're just a regular person. And the greatest thing you could ever do is help out your friends who are other musicians. So that's the common thread that I talk about, the big difference between the New Jersey and especially our area, the New Jersey, even New York guys. We all looked out for each other, the Staten Island bands. It was like, dude, I remember playing Mingles, and I blew up 3 heads. I don't know what happened, but Scotty Hill was there.
Like,
and he's watching this. He ran back to him and Snake's apartment and got another head for me so I could finish my show. Do you think that would ever happen in LA if some band?
Hell, they want you to burn.
No, man. Hell no.
Yeah.
So, that just goes to show you. And, these guys that are here on this, especially, it was always like, man, if a gig came up, somebody was calling, hey, man, I need a guitar player. I'd be like, I need a producer. I need somebody to do my tape. Call J3. You need a great acoustic guitar player. Call McGill. That's what we do. And what we learned as youngsters, and I think, of course, it's because the way we were raised. I think we all came from good families where you learn these values, but it's certainly a New Jersey thing that could even go back. You look at what Bruce used to do, how he used to help out bands. But, definitely, again, it's something in the Garden State, the water, the pizza, the beer, whatever we used to do. And it was just at the end of the day, it was, again, Bon Jovi coined the phrase, the brotherhood. But I think that goes to all of us, because I think at any given time, had anybody called me and said, dude, I need a guitar, I need an amp, I need your help, I would be there. And likewise, you know, everybody here on the show would do the same.
You know, I want to piggyback on what you said, Steve. You know, the other thing that I think that's really important to really mention is the fact that all of us here, which really to me what I find interesting is that we were all, you know, keep in mind back then, there was no internet, there was no social media, right? We were all scenesters, if you know what I mean by that. Is that the fact that our Friday and Saturday nights, or even during the week, all of us, we were at the Limelight, the China Club, the Cat Club,
Studio One, L'Amour's, the rock capital of Brooklyn.
Exactly. We were at L'Amour's, and so any given night, I'd be out there, you know, either with some of my other local musicians and band members, and they're like, oh, look, there's Steve Brown. Look, there's James McGill. There's Eric. You know, we're all hanging out, and that really shows the level of commitment that we had in what we did. We really wanted to do something and make a mark, and the only way you can do that was through the hard work of, just like when you read, like as you said, in my buddies, you know, my colleague's book, Nothing But Time. These guys, you know, the guys that they write about in that book, those guys lived and breathed the Sunset Strip. Like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know where, I can't speak for the rest of us. Maybe Steve knows just as many, or J3 knows as well as I do. But if you ever been to the Sunset Strip, all the clubs that Van Halen, Motley Crue, Poison, they are within spitting distance of each other. And those guys,
bigger than it was when I went there. I was like, what? This is it?
Over a mile.
Yeah. Those guys like us, they would be hanging out on any given night, on a Wednesday night, on a Friday night, putting up flyers or just hanging out, making connections. And the irony here is that here we are on the East Coast, which is so cynical, and we were just doing the same exact thing at all these clubs that we all played at. And it was just, that's how I got to know these guys. That's exactly. It's the same how I got to know everyone.
To both of your points between, you know, up here or, you know, East Coast and LA was LA started kind of the same way, right? 60s and 70s. It was where all the bands played. But then it was like everybody decided to move there to try to make it. And those are the people Steve was running into when they went out there. It's like they don't live there. They're not from there.
Same thing with Nashville, right?
Yeah, they're just there to make it. They spend a lot of money, they're losing money, and they're not getting signed, and they're not happy about it. And then a signed band shows up making a record, and they're not happy about that either. You know, it was a time that I don't know if it's going to repeat itself. I mean, you know, people used to just live on Avenue A in New York City to be able to go and play Brownies and all these clubs, and like you just can't do that anymore. It's way too expensive, you know, and that's something that may not come back. But we were right place, right time. I wasn't so much like, hey, I want to be out in clubs all the time, but I wanted to play guitar in bands, and that's where the bands were. You know, I had to meet Steve and Sam Ash when like 1985 or something, because we were the only two snot-nosed kids who were like, hey, do you have any Charvels? You know, what do you have? We were just always fucking there.
No, it was earlier. It was 1984. It was.
Wow.
And I still remember. Again, I remember like yesterday going there, and I was walking up, and I saw this kid. I had my red parachute pants on, red Tizios, and Jay, he had gray parachute pants. He had long hair. He had long curly hair, and I was starting to grow my hair out, and I'm like, who is that dude? He's got to play guitar. And sure enough, that's what it was. And it was always that thing, you know, at Sam Ash, you know, Tom Suntag, Steve Zanke, John Chris, those guys. Yeah, he's my down the street. I still see him all the time. But you know, those guys were the Sam Ash music. I think you guys, you know, being from Bergen County, especially, that was my, you know, that was my rainbow. I was too young to go to bars,
you were too young
so I would hang out at Sam Ash and play all those guitars. But
Yeah, after school, go skateboarding, right, and go right to the music,
man.
and sit there for hours.
Ride my Diamondback up to Sam Ash and play guitars, and you know. But you know what John said, and I was thinking about this before, and you hit it on the head. The difference, again, what I was saying about how we were raised, how we grew up. Most of the LA scene, none of those guys were actually from California. They were all transients. They all moved out there to make it. They all risked their lives to make it. And I commend them. And most of the bands are all my friends.
Which is awesome, but it's a different attitude.
It is. And that's the difference of where I think the camaraderie, and like Paul, what you were saying, how we were scenesters, it was that because, and for me, you know, again, I've always said since day one, I've always loved every aspect of the business, for better or worse. I loved printing up Trickster flyers and going to the clubs and handing out, you know, flyers to all the girls. And I loved going to Paramus Park and Garden State Plaza, doing that. And I loved calling, you know, as much as I hated Pete Tertia sometimes, I loved to try to book gigs, you know, because, and I guess, you know, that was one of the things that you had to learn early on, that, and this is something, you know, that a lot of people forget. It ain't just about music. It's not, man. It is about so many other things. You got to pay attention to what you look like, what you wear, what you say, and promoting and doing all this. And again, we did all this before, you know, it was the old way, man, where you handmade flyers. It didn't matter what it was, you know, and, you know, again, it's a time that'll never, ever be repeated. And like I said, I thank God that we all were, in my opinion, we grew up and we were a part of the greatest scene and greatest times ever in music, because, you know, in my opinion, it's never going to be recreated.
Well, I gotta piggyback off that, because it's different now with the technology. Even when we had to learn how to play, dude, how many times did you press stop, rewind, play, stop, rewind, play? You're learning it by ear. There was no tablature. Mel Bay books sucked ass. That was the worst shit on the planet. And it was just like, I learned my first power chord, and I said I played everything on the fucking E and A string as far as I could go up if I didn't have to switch strings. But there was no.
Stop, rewind, play. Let me take you back. It was pick up the
needle.
And then
all right, Gramps. You know, did you use your phonograph back then too?
I wish the people that were watching this could see what's going on in the private chat. I'm just going to throw that out there.
there's a lot of smackdown in the private chat right now.
Yeah. I love it, though. I love it. Absolutely.
Shit comes too easy, I think, for players today. I remember when I went to NAMM, like one of the early NAMM shows in California, and I thought I was like, I can play Van Halen, I can this and that. And I remember seeing these 13-year-old kids just ripping arpeggios and stuff like in every goddamn booth at the NAMM show, and I was like, holy shit, I suck, you know. But it's just, we had to work, I think, way harder at it. Like now, if I need to learn a song, I'll just go on YouTube right now and I'll watch somebody play it, and he'll show me lick for lick, and then all of a sudden they're going to give me all the fucking original backing tracks so I can play along and make sure I don't suck.
There's two big parts to that you know makes a lot of sense. It's that not everybody learns music the same way, and the people that handed us Mel Bay books or tried to get us to actually read sheet music, which I had no interest in. I tried. It just didn't work for me. It was always listening by ear and trying to figure out the tones by ear and what are they playing and what am I missing and tearing it apart. And, you know, now it's like everything's been dissected. You know, the multi-tracks of Van Halen 1 are out there. You can get them for free. You know, all of that stuff is there. And we had to listen to the record.
Yeah, I remember even the little things, Jay, is like figuring out tone, right? Like what the hell is the mid knob do? I remember I saw Steve.
What does any of it do?
Steve was in Lowride playing. I can't remember what the fuck the name of the club was, but you were throwing rocks. You were doing the cover thing back then. And Steve's like, dude, mid is where it's at, man. Mid. And I was like, what the fuck? I put my mid on like 0. And he's like, no, dude, 5 or 6.
Put it on 10.
And then get up. And all of a sudden I was like, wow, all of a sudden I can hear myself in the mix. I was like, wow, motherfucker. It's those little things that you remember that hit it for you.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead. Sorry, didn't want to cut you off, Brad, but
No. I'm enjoying listening to you guys. Again, I'm enjoying reading the private chat just as much as I am listening to you guys answer all the questions. Steve, Trixter recently celebrated the 30th anniversary of playing Giant Stadium. Sorry, MetLife Stadium. Or was it? No,
Brendan Byrne
Brendan Byrne Arena. I'm sorry.
That's there, DJ Staples.
I'm a Canadian. Bear with me. I'm still learning where the hell I'm living.
Los Angeles Forum.
Yeah, that's right.
Garden State Arts Center.
Mother's nightclub.
So where are you from in Canada? What part?
I'm originally from Toronto.
All right, so we celebrated the past couple months. We celebrated the 30th anniversary of playing Maple Leaf Gardens, the Sky Dome, which was our first stadium show back in April of 1991. But the Meadowlands, 30 years ago, and that was the dream from day one. It was never about making records. It was never about being on
in the arena down the street.
It was never about touring. Our one, and it was very simple and completely honest. And, it was all we ever worked for, was to play the Meadowlands Arena. It was like, I remember we all used to say that. And we used to just go, if we play the Meadowlands, we're done. We're going to retire after that, and 30 years later.
This is the goal.
Let me ask you a question. So how old were you when you first played that? Like, I mean, how old were you when you played the Brendan Byrne?
Oh, I was 20.
20. What was that actually? Bring me through the steps. What was that like? Like you walking out of your back dressing room up to the stage? Like was it like?
Whose show is this? Who's asking all the questions for God's sake?
I just was thinking about it the other day.
It's good. No, I'm glad you did.
Well, look, we had been, we were blessed and with getting signed, and we made this record, which was, we were kind of the Bad News Bears. If you look back on it, we were signed to sort of a major label, this Mechanic Records, and we sort of had a major management company. Every part of it was like, whoa. Yeah, and no offense to anybody, but true. And luckily we, by the grace of God and the fact that we had something unique, we were a unique thing. Trixter was. And again, Paul, you said it before, when I started Trixter, all I ever wanted to be was a mini Van Halen, and that's all. When I started the band, it was like, Pete wasn't even a singer when I started the band. And I would tell everybody, this is what we're doing. You got to do this. You got to do that. You got to wear this. We're going to do this. And that was the whole thing. So when we finally got to play the Meadowlands, and of course, that was where we saw Van Halen for the first time. That was where we saw Bon Jovi, which Bon Jovi getting their gold records the night they opened up for Rat. That was a huge moment to where, look, man, when you see Bon Jovi, I think at that point, 1985, Bon Jovi was the first New Jersey hard rock band to ever play it was the Brendan Byrne at the time, Meadowlands Arena. And man, I remember vividly going, man, if they can do it, we're going to do it, and it was like, because look, let's be real here. John Bon Jovi, great superstar frontman. Was he the greatest singer? No, he was not, but he was the superstar. And we all know, again, what I said before, it ain't all about music, man. It's having that whole package. And when I saw Bon Jovi play that night, that was when, for me in my head, I said, we're going to play the Meadowlands, and someday we're going to get our gold or platinum records. And, 5 years later from that, I believe, 6 years later, we were doing it. So James, what was it like walking out on stage? I mean, we had already been playing arenas for 4 months already at that time. So we were kind of a well-oiled machine,
warmed up,
very confident. We owned MTV for 6 months. Every video, give it to me good, 1 in a million. We were good. You were there, man. We were living it, man. For that moment in time, we were on top of the world, and we were confident. So we were ready. And, it was just one of those moments, man. It wasn't anything like, we weren't sitting there crying on each other's shoulders. We were just like, man, this is it.
You were coming home victorious.
Yeah, man, like Bon Jovi said when they played there, we made it to the dance. When they played Giant Stadium, Richie Sambora, we made it to the dance. That's what we were saying because, and it was really special because Doc McGee was managing the Scorpions, who we were opening for, and Doc was there and the Bon Jovi guys, and it was just magic, man. And to get out there and, play the opening riff to Bad Girl and look out and see all your friends and family. And it was, and again, anytime you're an opening band playing an arena, anything can happen. So there was always that part of me that goes like, please, man, don't let my wireless cut out. Don't let me fall through the stage. Don't let PJ swing his bass.
Breaking E string.
A lot can go wrong, man. But it was one of those things where we came out and started the song. And I just remember once we kicked into the verse of Bad Girl, everything felt really good. It sounded great. Man, my guitars were like at 120 decibels on stage. And that's all I cared about. It was like, I had one of those nights where it was like, I got perfect tone. We're going to do this. And, it flew by, man. It was really quick, but luckily we have some footage and some of the bootleg tapes of it. And, where MTV was there to document it. And, it was just magic, man. It was one of those dream come true moments and, a moment we'll never forget. And, glad most of you guys were there to be a part of it with us.
Let me, Steve, like, allow me to blow some more smoke up your ass here, but I will. What I want to say, and this will probably jog a lot of the other guys' memories, but like from my memory, as when I was, back then when I was younger, you guys were the aspirational band. There was no other band in our circuit that was strict. We all just was like, these guys, when you guys hit the stage, you owned the stage. You looked like you were having a blast while you were up there. But not only that, is that it goes back to the idea. You guys were probably the most LA band in North Jersey because not only were you doing all that kind of stuff, but between the sets and in the clubs, you guys were handing out flyers. You were like, hey, I'm Steve Brown. I'm this, I'm that. You guys were doing all the same moves that Poison, Motley Crue, all those LA bands were doing. You were just like, there was no other band kind of like you at the time that was doing what you guys were doing. Because we were all just kind of doing the North Jersey thing. But Trixter was really felt like, a transplant from LA in that band, for a North Jersey band. And so it was really impressive back then.
I want to piggyback in. I think that it's important, something that Steve and I guess kind of like, I don't know, it was just in us, like, to think about going all the way instead of thinking about how hard it was, or I'll never make it there, I'll never get that phone call, or I'll never play that arena. We just thought, we're gonna, we just got to keep going. Obviously, if it doesn't happen, but I found myself in the weirdest places going, how did it just happen?
Well, I think J3, I think the one thing that's always struck me about you and Steve is that the two of you, from my impressions of the two of you, is that neither of you had a backup plan. It was always like, always, we were born to do this and that's it. Whereas guys like me, I'm just like, I think I got this, but I'm not 100%.
My father was an ex-Marine sergeant. He's like, so you want to grow your hair long and play in a rock and roll band? He's like, you will finish school, you will have a backup plan, you will have a job, and that's I said, well, fuck it. If I'm going to do that, then I might as well just be in the music business. I'll work at Victor's. I'll work in the music store. I'll try to do this shit. But yeah,
I had jobs, and I was working a lot, and that's how I bought my gear. But I actually got to a point where I was like, if I keep working, I'm never going to do this. Like I had to actually like sort of quit working like when I was 20. It was like 1990. I'm like, I just have to like really work barely part-time to put all my time into this. It's like the very beginnings of what would become Section 8 and all the other stuff. You know, it was blind faith. It was completely foolish. You know, there was no financial expectation whatsoever. And it was, you know, but it was pure, you know, Steve, I remember Steve and I hit it off on that level. Like, it wasn't like, yeah, you know, so in a couple of years when this doesn't work out, you know, that never happened. Like, it just never happened.
You guys were like, I'm all in. That's it. I'm all in.
Triple down.
It was, you know, Paul, you know, what you're saying is so true because, but with that being said, it was never, I never thought about it. It just became my way of life. And for everybody around me, it was like, you're either with me or you're not. And that included everybody in my family, my friends. It was like, man, you know, people are like, hey, why don't you come out and hang out with us? No, I'm home writing songs. I'll hang out with you when you come to my gig, but I don't hang out anymore. I sit home and write songs, you know. And again, while other people in the band were out partying with chicks and rocking and doing that, that was great because they were out networking. I was the one who was home writing the songs on a Friday or Saturday night when we weren't gigging, getting ready for Sunday night's gig at the China Club. But, you know, it was that. But it goes back to what I said before. From the beginning, when I started the band, I loved every aspect of it. I just wanted to be a part of it and just had so much fun. And the camaraderie, because String and James, you guys, and all you guys know, man, how many times did we all wind up at the same parties?
Yeah.
We'd be sitting there talking about, oh, dude, did you hear the new Rat record? How great is Martini's tone?
It was the same gigs. I mean, we were all, you know, at that point at these different levels. And, you know, you guys were up here, but, you know, it was like we were all doing it.
Yeah.
And so there wasn't like LA where it was like dog eat dog. I'm gonna pop holes in your tires so you can't get to the rainbow. Like none of that shit was going on. You know?
Yeah.
If you guys weren't involved in the music industry doing what you do now, where, you know, Eric, you're at Dean Guitars, Paul, Guitar World, James, full-time musician writing songs, J3, obviously everyone knows, you know, you're with Tommy Lee, you're with the Struts, and Steve, of course, you know, Trickster, and you did. I want to touch on the Def Leppard thing in a bit too, but what would you guys do if you weren't doing this? Again, you talked about not having a backup. What was that, Paul? I'm sorry.
You're throwing the Spinal Tap question at us.
I know, I have to.
I'm going to be a fucking shoe salesman then.
There you go.
All right, Al Bundy, good for you.
I'd probably be a surgeon.
Gynecologist.
No, James would be in politics. There's no doubt in my mind.
Absolutely.
Zero doubt in my mind.
No doubt.
James, when you get in politics, I'm coming with you. I'm picking back with you.
I'll bring you with me, man. I'll bring you with me. Absolutely.
Your comptroller or whatever it is.
I mean,
I can see your slogan posters now, Mr. Rutherford and Riario. There you go.
I love it.
All right, so I want to get to the nitty gritty shit. I want to hear stories, some things that have happened on tours, at gigs, something memorable stuff that you can remember. Just wacky stuff that may have happened to either one of you. Eric, I'm going to go with you first.
Oh, dude.
This way, I'm asking Eric first so he can't text his brother like, this Brad, what an asshole. You watching this nonsense? He's a jerk. So go ahead. I'm going to make you go first.
I mean, for me, it was so many drunken people at shows. I remember playing, where the hell was I? Rock and Roll Cafe on Bleecker Street in the city.
Love that place.
And that gig used to start at midnight, and it would go until 4 a.m.
You lived there. We lived at that place.
Oh, my God. And I would go in there, and literally, as people come in, a lot of transients, in and out. Literally, we couldn't have been playing any fucking louder. And there's this girl just passed out over the stage vocal monitors, just like her hair is going like this. It was so ridiculously loud. And it's just stupid shit like that. There's, you know, you could go on with the bar fights. The first place I played in Sayreville, New Jersey, there were people snorting coke off toilet seats and full out, no joke, bar fights where they're taking the freaking the stools and smashing them over each other. I thought it was in like Roadhouse. It was rough. That was God. I was like 18 before I could even get into clubs. That was my first band that I was in, doing covers down there in Sayreville, New Jersey. Man, it was rough. It was an eye opener. I'll tell you. I grew up quick with that.
What about you, James? Any interesting stories?
There's just there's so many. I remember back we were playing the Tropical Pub in Belmar. Not that it's anything crazy, but just getting. I think one night it was a tequila night, and I go to jump up, and there's this I-beam that goes across the stage. I just jumped off and hit my head, went back down, and then my singer was Johnny Lowe at the time. There was in Yo Cuz. He picks me up, and I just do a shot. And I'm just like, let's go, let's just keep going. But God, we've had some crazy nights. And how about in Europe when we were over there? Playing over in England. Jesus.
Well, before we go there, the amount of alcohol that got consumed.
Mickey's Big Mouth, baby.
From Friday to Sunday at the Tropical Pub was something I cannot quantify at this time. England was insane. That was incredible to, basically through the diligence of Ted Poley, getting Section 8 over there to play the LA2, to do a bunch of other smaller gigs. The bands were literally like giving us their gigs, like, hey, we can play Canterbury anytime, but here's,
just being really nice and
of course, like all of our Hoboken buddies decided to come, which was just. Don't get arrested in a foreign country.
Don't do that. Don't say bomb. Don't say bomb in the airport.
I'm kind of getting the idea, like with some of these stories, like you're keeping it nice for the viewing public. I know most of you. I know there's shit to be told, but I get it. But what about you, Paul? Any interesting stories from your gig days?
By the way, I'm sorry, before you start, I remember seeing you in Push at Club Benet.
Oh, yeah.
All right. At Push at Club Benet. And this is a crazy one. And all of a sudden, I think Sebastian Bach was fighting with your bass player or somebody's bass player and on the stage, like you were just anybody about his girlfriend or something. And there was this big thing, and all of a sudden, like this is shit flying everywhere, and all of a sudden, like, all right, push, and you have to go on. Or it was just silly Jersey shit, man. Silly Jersey shit.
Yeah, that is true. Again, as I said before, all of us were scenesters, and I think all of us watched all these bands come up through the pike. Like from Skid Row to Bon Jovi to Alice in Chains. We watched them all show up, but as far as for me, I have tons of stories, but the one story that always sticks with me is that I think I am the only guy here who had a guy who was murdered at one of my gigs. I'm the Rolling Stones Altamont guy.
Oh, do tell. Wow.
So we played. So my one band, we played up in Hunter Mountain, and as we were playing, there was a bit of a ruckus going on the dance floor or whatever. And I remember seeing a guy being hauled out the door, by a bunch of bouncers. So later on, I'm trying to keep this kind of brief. At the end of the show, we finished. I'm packing up all my stuff. I'm going out the door to bring my gear out to my car. And as I'm walking out the door, I see this guy propped up against the door through the parking lot. And there's a moment when you look at a guy that's lying on the floor that you immediately instinctively know, oh, that guy's dead. I'm like,
look at that.
That guy's fucking dead. So I bring my car, put my stuff there, bring my stuff to the car. I run back to the stage. I go, we need to get the fuck out of here. There's a dead guy in the fucking bar. You know, I like he's a totally dead guy.
What, really killing them, huh, guys?
Yeah. So I run back to the stage, I grab my guitars, and I'm going out the same way, and I see a bouncer blocking the door that I just came out. And I'm like, I look at the bouncer, I'm going, my car's out there, and he goes like that. And I go, well, then I look at him, I go, is he? I go, and I mouth him, is he dead? And the guy goes, I go, yes, I know he's fucking dead. I throw my guitars in, I go back in, I grab it, I was like, we gotta get the fuck out of here because this dude is dead. And then as I'm going back for the third time to pick up the last of my stuff, I hear the sirens. And the next thing I know, as I'm bringing my stuff out the back one more time, the cop is there and he goes, no more, you can't come out, you gotta go back in. So there we were stuck in Hunter Mountain. We had to wait for the cops to show up. The guy was dead, and long because the bouncers threw his head against the door to throw him out into the parking lot, and he ended up dying out in the snow. Anyway, well, what I want to say, the most important thing that I need to stress from this story is that the one thing I feel really sorry about is the last song the guy heard was us doing a cover of a Fall Out Boy song. So I'm
at least it wasn't Blister in the Sun or something.
That's like
Nickelback song.
That would have sucked.
You leave this mortal coil hearing dance? No.
That's that way to go.
Oh my God, no.
How about you, Steve? I'm sure you've got some stories. Some that you can tell here.
Not really.
Yeah. Yeah, there are way too many. I mean, we'd be here for 10 hours just to scratch the surface, but I'll go with, well, why don't you were asking me about the Def Leppard situation.
Yes.
So I have a great story, and I've told this before, but I don't know if a lot of your listeners have heard it, but in 2014, when I did my first round of touring with Def Leppard, I was on the Kiss and Def Leppard Shed tour that we were doing. Is Kiss and Def Leppard and the Dead Daisies, and I was out there rehearsing, like I would do sound checks and whatnot, and to learn, the set and get my inner mix ready to play, because I was going to start playing shows in the fall with them. So one of my first nights, of course, Kiss, I toured with them already, friends with Gene and Paul and Tommy and Eric and all the crew guys, Doc McGee, of course, managing the band and whatnot. But one of my first sound checks with Def Leppard was up at Saratoga at the SPAC up there. And I remember, with Def Leppard, every time we do sound check, we do Hysteria. And this was probably the second one that I ever did with the band. So it was just kind of getting used to the whole thing. And, and in-ears was kind of a new thing for me. So, that's for you guys, out there, if you use them, a lot of times you get lost in the music, because especially if the mix is really good, it almost sounds like you're not playing. You're like playing along to a CD, and here it is, one of my favorite bands in the world, Def Leppard. I'm playing with them. And, we're playing Hysteria, and it's fucking sounding awesome. I'm feeling really good. And all of a sudden, I look over my right shoulder. Who's looking at me like this, going like this? It's Paul Stanley. Oh, and I'm like, holy shit, if this isn't heavy enough, that here I am, this fucking kid from Paramus, New Jersey. I'm, on tour with Def Leppard and Kiss, playing on stage, sound check. And then one of my idols, Paul Stanley's watching me like this, with that
no pressure
smirk on, like, show us, Steve, show us what you got. Eric Singer were there, and I was like, man, that was a pretty heavy moment for me, and it was just really cool. And what's even cooler, my buddy LJ, who, there were no pictures, the whole, sensitivity police were out, where you can't take any pictures, you can't take any video. My buddy LJ was there, and he was sitting in the front row, and he has the one and only picture. And if you zoom in, you can actually see Paul's head right over my shoulder. And it was just, it was just one of those cool moments. Yeah, man, I could go into a million stories, playing at Club Manhattan, 1986, one of Trickster's first gigs ever. The original bass player in the band mouths off to the owner. Next thing you know, all the guys leave, and they leave me. I'm 15 years old. I don't drive. So I'm stuck in Spring Valley, New York, which to a 15-year-old who's never really been to many places in life, it's a half hour away from Paramus. It might as well have been California.
Some other details too.
The security guy grabs me, pulls me inside. Like, dude, this is crazy. I'm like a little kid, you know. I was like 110 pounds, you know, in my parachute pants and Capizios again. And he pulls me inside, and the owner goes, "Who the F do you know? Who the fuck are you? You're a bass player telling me, do you know who I am? Blah, blah, blah." And the motherfucker spit in my face. He wrapped a towel around my head, spit in my face again. And he goes, "You tell that motherfucker never to mouth up. You don't know who you're messing with." Dude, that was my introduction. Like, wow, rock and roll ain't all fun and games.
Welcome to New York.
Pretty crazy moment, man. And I'll never, ever forget that till the day I die. And that was one of those things you see in the movie, like Eddie and the Cruisers, or in the Bon Jovi video, Only Lonely. Remember when they pulled them up? You know, man, this is crazy. That was it, man. The motherfucker.
Get these guys out of here.
And what's even funnier, so fast forward, I'm thinking it's like 1990 when Trickster was doing good. My, Cosette, my wife, and I, we weren't married at the time, but we were at this restaurant in Lodi, New Jersey, and I saw the guy sitting there. I remembered it like, whoever that guy is who owned Club Manhattan, whoever the fuck you are, I am going to find you, and I'm going to fucking kick you in the
down
ball.
like a dog.
I see it.
Don't hold back.
Mr. fucking Mafia, but it was crazy, man. And I remember, so the guys, they all fucking got back to my parents' house because that's where all the gear was. And they go, "Where's Steve?" They're like, "Holy shit, we left him up there." You know, and I remember Vinny and Vinny Joy and all the guys, they fucking had to drive back up there. I was scared out of my mind, man. I had fucking spit running down my face. I think I shit my pants because I was so scared. But man, that was a pretty heavy moment in, you know, learning about the tough, evil side of rock and roll. But
Can I interject and say that? Oh my God, I love Club Manhattan's was my fucking training ground. Like I'd be at Club Manhattan's almost every Friday and Saturday to see TT Quick and Split Sydney and all the bands. Like, I mean, like that was like where I learned how to play guitar. I mean, it was just like every great guitar player showed up in fucking Club Manhattan, and the sound was always great there. It was a small club, and the drinking age was 18 at the time, so it was fun. Oh my God.
So listen, I'm gonna bring somebody on the screen here really quick. I want to let you know that I first met this gentleman with my ex-wife. We were on a cruise together, and she said, "Oh, that's so and so from Glen Rock." And then fast forward, after meeting James and seeing bands like Section 8 perform, and it all kind of ties together with this guy. So how about it? Let's hear for Southside. What's up, Jason? Good to see you, man. How about that?
Wow. Yeah, this is a really, really, really strange connection.
Yeah, man.
Honestly, really strange ground. I mean, you guys won't talk about yourselves, right? So I'll have to tell you guys won't talk. But I mean, this is crazy because I mean, Eric and I have a very unique connection. We grew up together. We've been in the Sandbox together. His brother's one of my oldest friends from kindergarten.
Sorry to hear that.
I lent him the bass once. He never gave it back to me. That's a whole other issue.
He's a
but like, you know, I was a stalker of Victor's House of Music. And Paul, like you said earlier, he's a little older than us, and he worked there.
Can I say that?
Victor's had this like clear Ludwig drum set in the window for like 30 years. It was like multicolored and it lit up with lights. It's probably still there, and even though the store's gone, and I wanted it, and I was there every day just looking at it. But I kind of knew who Paul was, and then a bunch of my Glen Rock buddies, pre-Cloud 9, which Eric can attest to, was Free Will.
Oh yeah,
Free Will, which is the original version of Cloud 9 with Ben Toro, who's got a great restaurant. Everybody should go check it out. And then obviously Owen and the gang. And then Paul joins that band later when it's Cloud 9. But we go to the China Club to see Free Will open for Rocks. and Trickster's on the bill right before Rocks. First time I ever saw him. It's like a Sunday night at the China Club. I walk up to Steve Brown after the show, and I'm like, Steve Brown, dude, that was amazing. And he's like, hey, dude. And he goes, you look like Southside. I'm like, Southside who? He's like, Southside Johnny. And just starts telling everybody in the club that I'm Southside.
That was it.
That's how that got started. But then, like,
That looks like somebody.
It's crazy because that turns into a lifelong friendship with Steve. And then friggin' I meet J3 through Steve, and we become great friends. But the thing about Steve Brown, I want to say that you guys touched on it with that Jersey camaraderie thing, though. It was he took us all along for this fucking great ride. Like all his friends were, and Steve was going on this ride, and he was like, "You're all coming with me. Like this is our crew. You are our dudes." And we all got to go on the ride of our life, which opened up all these doors. I learned a lot about music management from Steve's management guys, you know, just being around. Yeah. Came home and started to manage this local band called Cleavage, which I don't blame Paul for not mentioning that he was a member of.
Paul disappeared. Paul disappeared.
We lost Paul.
We lost Paul, but he'll be back.
I'm going to tell it anyway, because when the Cleavage lineup changed a million times, and everybody knows why. That's another issue. But when we went to re-record the demo, Cleavage had a hit on WSOU radio, which was pretty big for Jersey, and it was called 15 Gets You 20. And when we went to record all the songs with the new band, which was like Ronnie Parks and his brother and Scott Nazareth, Larry pulled me aside and he said, listen, we're going to use the old version of 15 Gets You 20. And I said, why are we using the old version of 15 Gets You 20? We got the new band has to be on the demo. And he goes, because Paul Riario played the most amazing guitar solo on that track that I've ever been affiliated with in all my years of being around music. He said, and I don't know if it's true, Paul, but Larry swears that you and him literally like note had this solo track, and it was like, and so Larry was like, we're never, ever, ever doing away with that version because of Paul Riario's insane guitar solo on 15 Gets You 20. And I mean, it was a monster hit on SOU. I still have it. If you want a copy of it, you can have it. If you want to burn a copy of it,
honestly, I'm really flattered by this. I'm flattered, but yeah, it was those were interesting days. Those were interesting days, I will say. We spent a lot of time. I mean, like again, I'm gonna say for all of us that I think all of us, we spent a lot of time really honing our craft, just whether it's live or playing, sitting in a studio. It was just that we worked hard because we were at a time when we thought we can all do this, you know, and Steve is living proof of that. J3 is living proof of that. It was a great time, great people. And the fact that all of us here have all shared a stage together, which is, I'm really honored to be around these guys. So
the one thing I would also add to that is for people that are fans and just don't know you guys, the amount of hours that you guys have put in being guitar players is I don't know anybody than the five of you guys who played more guitar. I mean, hours upon weeks. I mean, it just doesn't happen. Like, you have to respect the amount of time that somebody puts in to their craft. I mean, Eric played so much guitar growing up, and then one day, like Paul said, he just showed up, and it was like, holy shit! Like I said earlier, like I could play this part of Van Halen to literally, like, you know, it just, and it's like, and I know the time that Steve puts in, and it's just, I don't know anybody that's played more hours of guitar than Steve Brown. You know?
Can I interject real quick? One of my favorite things that I ever saw was I pretty much hated being at home for a long period of time, and I used to go see Eric play in All She Wrote at first with his brother. I did it every weekend religiously, which caused problems at home while I'm a single guy now. But then he joined Monster, and I used to see him and Paul doing like Crazy Train, dueling guitar solos. And Paul's saying to Eric, like, come on, motherfucker, get this done. Let's go. Like hyping up Eric. And I used to love watching that shit. And then, of course, seeing Steve the first time. Steve, do you remember when you and I met the first time at all? The night you lost your wallet in Clifton?
Oh, yes. Oh, my God. Right? Yeah, that certainly wasn't the most pleasant of times to meet me.
No, but again, I'll never forget. And then going to see you play locally, watching you play. And then, of course, watching James play. I mean, you guys are all great. And Jason, J3, of course. I mean, you guys are all badass players. I mean, there's no doubt. So I'm with Jason, man. Like, this is great to see you guys all together here.
And the Jersey thing is such a unique, like Steve hit it off before. He said everything there is to say about the Jersey rock scene and what it was and the time that we grew up in it. And it is, I mean, there was nothing else like it. I mean, it was a cathedral of music. Every night of the week, there was somewhere to go. And magic. One of these guys was playing everywhere. One of those nights. I even have Soretta demos on the wall, McGill.
Oh, my God.
I mean, it's like,
holy shit.
I caught that demo in the crowd at a World Stage show, and I got to go on Midnight Metal and like whatever. Like
I think we were opening for Trickster that night or something like that.
I think we opened for
Ace Frehley.
It was Rocco's band, American Angel.
No, it might have been Ace Frehley. I don't know.
Insane, but I mean,
magical times, man. And then
you guys epitomize what makes that Jersey thing great. It's like this is such a cool collection.
And here we are, all these years later, healthy, happy, and pretty.
I know, and the first thing I saw when I logged on was your ass. It's like I've only seen it a million times. I had to see it again.
But and look, here it is. No matter what, we're all still doing it, and like Eric said, we're all still in parts of the music business, whether we're all playing or not. But what I can say is, look. The success that we had with Trickster, as soon as it ended, because we all know what happened in the 90s, PJ and I, what did we do? Did we go get day jobs? Did we become Indian chiefs or petroleum engineers? No, we fucking started a cover band and we joined the scene and we were out there playing and doing it, and just
I joined your band.
At the end of it all, what are we? We're musicians. And what did Eddie Van Halen say before he passed? He said, man, you just got to keep playing. You keep playing. And that's what we do. And at the end of it, no matter what, it's still my favorite thing in the world is playing in a rock and roll band, whether it's playing in front of 5 people or 500,000 people. I still put on the same kind of show and do what I do. And I think you guys do the same because it's in our heart. It's in our DNA, man. That's the thing.
Yeah, you never stop. You never really stop playing. It's just whatever happens. Like I will say the same thing. It's like at least for me when I was at the point when I stopped playing original music, after Cloud 9, I said I was done. I'm done. I just decided that I needed to do something different. I shifted gears. But the most important thing about being a musician is that you never forget about being a musician. You just adapt to whatever you want to do next. It's always finding the next chapter to continue what you want to do. It's never having to shelf it. It's more of just figuring out where do I fit in my next musical chapter. So and that's really important. So
in to that point in the journey of all of this, getting anywhere as a musician, as we've all touched on with the flyers and the being a scenester and promoting bands and having a scene and then going beyond that, you have to learn so many skills along the way to make any of that happen.
That's so true. That's so
true. Bringing up the guy behind you too. You
got to be able to talk to people. You got to be able to get the gig. You got to be able to get out of the fight in the bar in New York City alive. You got to be able to. You got to be able to. Do that stuff. Get away with putting flyers on U.S. postal boxes in New York City, like Section 8 used to do all the time. And not get arrested. But you take that forward. And for me, it's like I didn't have the kind of a gold record or platinum record like Steve did early on in the day, and it's like all this other stuff, great stuff happened for me in different ways. That was insane, and it was just for the same reason of keeping doing it, applying all the things you've learned back then to move it forward, and not ever thinking, oh, you know, I'm not that good enough. You just got to be fucking prepared. You know, it's one thing if you show up and you're not prepared, you don't get it.
Well, the catalog of music that you guys all know from having done what Steve said, just always playing, whether it was your original band and thing.
Learning thousands of songs.
I've never seen collections of dudes that can show up to anybody's gig, anywhere, anytime, jump on stage, know the tune that the band asks you to play with them, and every one of you would not only know the tune, but friggin' nail it. I mean, nail it, like dead on. And it's like, it's like you go to Nashville and you're at Kid Rock's and the place is packed and the fucking band starts in with Don't Stop Believing and the guitar player can't even time the Neil Sean intro at the beginning. And I'm like, dude, pull the plug. And it's like, that drives me nuts.
Music City.
And I'm a guitar player snob because of J3 a lot. But before that, because Larry Yancey told me, listen to the solo on 15 gets you 20. We're never getting rid of that, you know? And it's like, it'll start somewhere, but you know, that drives me nuts. But these guys, I mean, dude, I've seen every one of these guys jump up on stage, whether it's in a NAMM jam or anywhere, and fucking destroy it. And every note to a thing. Every one of these guys. It's insane. From Wrong Train Running to Shout at the Devil to Running with the Devil, like it's insane, dude. It's a really cool collection of guitar players you got in the room right now, man.
Well, I'm glad that you were able to join us. I don't know if J3 like texts you like, come on and join us because I saw you in the chat, but I'm glad it worked out because where are you right now, Jason? You're in Baltimore?
No, I'm in Manhattan.
I'm sorry. Okay. All right. So listen, we've been doing this. We're 10 minutes shy of 2 hours, right? So I'm going to let you guys go very, very shortly, but I got to do one more thing before we go. We've mentioned, I'm going to share a little picture here to the screen. We've mentioned many times this particular artist. So I want to go around the room.
Wait, who's that?
Some guy. He made
Brendan Anthony.
Yeah. So let's go around the room and just, you know, we all know he recently passed. And as musicians, guitar players, let's kind of go around the room. We'll, you know what? We'll start with you, Paul. What do you think about when you see pictures of Eddie Van Halen now?
I mean,
or what's your thought on Eddie?
I mean, I've written it before on social media and also written in a review about Eddie. I mean, the thing I will say about Eddie is that none of us. Well, I can speak for myself. I would not have the job I have in the music industry. I'm sure Eric can say the same thing. Probably Steve as well. Any of us. I would not be working in the music industry if it weren't for Eddie Van Halen. Eddie Van Halen, outside of his just outside of his musical influences, of his musical influence, I should say, he influenced the whole musical industry. So, and if it wasn't for all the things that he innovated, created, made popular, none of us would be working in it. It's just, he was the coolest guy. He was a trailblazer. He was an innovator. The list is endless when you talk about Eddie Van Halen. He was the kind of guy that if you played guitar, you just wanted to be him, whether you liked him or not. It didn't matter whether you were a jazz player, a country player. He encompassed almost everything that is the joy of guitar playing, right? He was a guy who looked like he was having the best time of his life doing what he did. And that's what we want to aspire to in any part of our life, is to enjoy what you're doing. And Eddie really encapsulated that. He was emblematic of that. But more importantly, I would say the only fight I ever had with my wife was the only fight I ever had with my wife was when I was at a NAMM show, and she was home. And it was the end of the NAMM show, and Eddie was having a press conference of launching of one of his new guitars, right? And so I call her up, and I tell her, I go, hey, listen, you know, I call her up, I was like, hey, how's everything over there on the East Coast? She's like, oh, everything's great. And she starts talking. I was like, hey, listen, I know you want to get into this, but I got to leave. Eddie Van Halen is doing a press conference in about like half an hour. And she goes like, who the fuck is Eddie Van Halen? And I'm like, I'm standing there, I'm on the phone. I'm looking at my phone. I'm like, What? Like, she goes, yeah, who the fuck is Eddie Van Halen that you can't talk to me? I go, Eddie Van Halen's the reason I have a fucking job. And she's like, she goes, I don't understand what you're talking about. I go, so keep in mind, this is at the time, I don't know if you ever remember the time when they were those commercials of, remember those commercials that used to say, hey, I'm a Mac and I'm a PC.
Yeah.
I drew that reference. I go, okay. I'm racking my brain. I grab that reference in my brain. I go, let me put it this way: the music industry that we are in, everyone is a fucking PC, and fucking Eddie is a Mac. And she goes, okay, got it. Like, but still, she goes, still, fuck him that you can't fucking talk to me. I'm like, I gotta go.
Oh, that's great.
Wow.
How about you, James?
Well, I mean, God, I mean, what do you say? I mean, Fair Warning is my favorite all-time rock guitar album. I mean, start to finish, like Unchained, Dirty Movies. I mean, with Eddie, it's like, you hear Eruption. There's so many things that he's done that have influenced all of us, from like, even you do something like Eruption to like a Spanish Fly to whatever. Even when he's, when 1984 came out and he did like all the keyboard stuff, it was still Van Halen. It was still him. It was still, the solo from Beat It and Michael Jackson. I mean, that is one of the greatest solos ever that he's done. It's just Eddie. It's Eddie. I mean, and his style was cool, and he sort of had that. What is that? The California way of playing. Is that what it was known as? It became known as a Southern California way of playing, or something like that. I don't know. Like the whole fly picking stuff. I know that like. T. Martini and those guys used to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, he was just what's that?
Pasadena polka.
He's just amazing. It was just amazing, and it was definitely a heart punch when he passed away. Definitely a heart punch. But I mean, I still go back and try and cop his solos, just to see if I miss something every once in a while, and nobody can do it as great as he did, except for maybe Steve Brown.
Well, I like the segue. Steve, you're up.
Well, for me, that's all. Eddie Van Halen was my superhero. Kids looked up to, football players, baseball players. I wanted to be Eddie Van Halen. He was my superhero. He was everything to me, and it was the blueprint for everything that I tried to do and wanted to do. And I was lucky enough to get to meet him and become friends with him. And, we all can talk about the music and what he's done, the most influential guitar player, not only for guitar playing, but for what he's done guitar building and amplifiers. He is indescribable on so many fronts, but more importantly, and the most important thing, and anybody, I guess, Paul, you've met him, and I think most of you guys have met him. He was the sweetest, most humble, nicest guy that you could ever dream of. And it was like, there's that saying, be careful when you meet your heroes, because they're probably going to let you down. For me, it was like the most incredible thing, because I got to become friends with this guy, man, I would call him on the phone. He would call me, and we would hang out. And I spent, some of the most incredible times in my life with him, and kind of pinch me moments where you just go, me and him sitting in a room together, talking about life. I never really talked music that much with him. We got off on, crazy humor, like we all do, the dirty jokes and funny movies and stuff like that. But the core of it all was, man, he was just, and the way he was, him and his brother Alex, man, they were true musicians. And I remember this back in like the early 2000s when I was playing, Sugar Belly and playing cover gigs with all you guys. And I remember driving up, I would drive up to Connecticut every Thursday night. Remember the three used to play with us at this place, The Loft. And I used to call out at the studio out at 5150 to talk to him. And it was probably at that time when he was going through a really dark time, which we all, you've seen that. But just to go to show you what type of person he was, man. And he'd go, man, what are you gigging? I go, yeah, man, I'm doing a cover gig. And he would go, oh, what kind of tunes are you playing? And I just thought that
sounds like a Van Halen show.
Yeah, but we weren't playing.
Somebody get me a doctor. You really got me.
It goes back to, like you know, him and his brother, they were true musicians to where they would never judge you. You know, it wasn't like, oh man, what happened to your career that you're playing cover tunes now? And they were never like that, you know, I always thought that was so unique. And it goes back to what I was saying about the person, because that's what it is. And ultimately it was just, you know, with Wolfgang, you know, the proudest moment of his life was being able to have Wolfgang Wolf and his band playing with him. And I remember the first time I saw him on that first tour in 2007, first thing he said to me, he goes, "What do you think of the kid?" And I go, "Man, Wolf's kicking ass. He's doing great." And it was, you know, that's really the true measure of man. You know, you raise your kids, and look what Wolfgang's doing. And, you know, I know Ed's looking down so proudly at that, you know, and, you know, losing Ed was like losing, you know, felt like losing a family member. You know, he was such a part of my life, all, you know, 40 plus years and a 30-year friendship, you know, and again, you know, he was one of the sweetest men you could ever meet. And for being who he was, you know, like I say all the time, he should be in the dictionary as guitar hero, should be that picture, you know, of Eddie Van Halen. You know, that is to me the quintessential be all end all of what a guitar hero is. The sound of his guitar, the songs he wrote, and the way he played it. And one of the key elements was always playing with a smile on his face, because at the end of the day, that's where he had the most fun in his life, being on stage playing music.
Absolutely. Eric, Mr. Stewart, you're up.
Yeah, you know, I got to tell you, I still have a hard time with it. Like, I still don't get that I'm not going to see another Van Halen tour, or hopefully with the archives of music that he left, kind of like how Prince did with his, is there's some treasure troves of stuff that'll get released and we get to hear it again. But the biggest thing for me with Edward was, as Steve said, he was humble, and he always had a smile on his face when he played. It was never work to him. That guitar was an extension of his being. And, you know, when he was ripping his guitars apart, that's probably one of the reasons that I'm at Dean, you know, designing guitars, is because when we were all little, like we talked about earlier, we used to beat the shit out of our guitars. I had a 3 single coiled Strat, and I said, well, maybe if I put the 2 pickups next to each other and make it look like this pickup that Eddie has in that Frankenstein guitar, I'll be able to sound like him. You know, he was an innovator. His use of tone, the Echoplex, the Variac, the whole 9 yards. I mean, we've gone through it a million times. It didn't matter. He'd pick up the guitar and it would still be him. He could play through any kind of piece of shit, and it was always Edward. And the one thing that I always regretted is I never got to meet him personally. I was he was with Peavey in 2000, and God, I don't remember what is 2002, 2003. I think he was with Peavey, and I was with Hartley Peavey, and I was talking to him at the NAMM show, and right behind me sitting there was Eddie, and he was doing a little clinic. He was showing off one of his new Wolfgangs, and I just wanted to take 2 seconds to get up and go shake his hand and say, I'm a fan, love your music. Be that guy, you know, but not be the starstruck guy. Just to get to see him, but I couldn't get out of the seat. I mean, I'm there with Hartley Peavey, and I'm just like, and then he went, he did his thing, and he split. I never got to meet him. I was so pissed. It still pisses me off to this day that I didn't get a chance to do that. But his music will live on forever. And like Steve said, you see Guitar Hero, that's him. When I heard Eruption, that was it for me, dude. And I still go back. I did a Van Halen tribute band, Fair Warning, for 7 years. And I still can't get his shit down. You go back and there's always something I'm learning. I'm like, holy crap, he did that there? Hang on, stop, rewind. Well, now it's on the computer. And just, you know, it's just, he had a rhythm to him outside of his lead playing that is unmatched by any guitar player ever. You know, so and may he rest in peace. And I'm getting Wolfie's album, and I'm excited, and I love what Wolf is doing. And you know, I just you know, it's just it's a bummer, man. It's a bummer.
J3.
I'm gonna try to keep it brief, but it probably won't be.
Good.
I mean, everybody glosses over the rhythm playing. It's an excellent point that you just made there. You know, pretty much, I used to call the first 4 records my Bible. You know, once I got out of classic rock, and a funny story, it was Christmas 1981, and I asked my aunt, my father's sister, for, get me the Van Halen album that has Eruption on it. And I get an album for Christmas, and I fucking take the fucking wrapping off, and it's got like a painting of a guy getting his face beaten in the street, and I'm like, okay, and I put it on, and it's Mean Street. But I didn't know that wasn't Eruption. I'm like, this doesn't sound like Eruption. This sounds like goddamn aliens are landing on planet Earth. I didn't even know what it was. Like, it completely blew my mind. They figured out, without the internet, that was not Eruption. But that album, to me, particularly the rhythm playing, is still something that I strive to do right, from a tonal perspective, from placement of notes, from the feel, from the looseness in the rhythm section. It's just absolutely insane. To the whole point of Gear, Eddie was the guy, and not having personally known him, but from what he did, the stuff he needed wasn't available. He modded everything. He fixed it. He tore it apart. I'm going to take this out of my 335 and put it in this and take it in that. He built what he needed, which is, a lot of people can't do that. They're not going to turn into luthiers, tomorrow to try to make an instrument that they can express themselves on. That's a whole other level. Maybe Les Paul was the last guy that really did that on that level, and that's saying a lot. But I can say, like, moving way, way, way forward, when he passed, like, I had a mini mental breakdown. I knew that he wasn't well, and I'd spoken to Steve, and that had been going on for some time. But when I actually knew that it was done, I needed a minute in front of very loud speakers, playing music for about 3 hours and drinking a lot of Jaeger. It was tough, just letting go, I guess.
Sure.
He was always there for me. Like you said, the 40 years of great records and incredible shows. So, I'll leave it at that. Massive influence, and again, not letting anything get in your way of going where you're going.
Absolutely.
The one thing is, touching on what you're saying, J3, is like, I always felt, the one thing that I think that we all love about Eddie was that Eddie always was always looked at as sort of as the future of guitar, right? And it was that it was the anticipation of every album that he would introduce, that he was going to do something new that we hadn't heard on guitar before.
Yeah.
Because up until the point of when he showed up, he trailblazed almost every technique, every sound, every innovation, every sort of, whatever he was working on, it was always something new. And I like, as guitarists, we always look for the potential to take the guitar to somewhere beyond what it is, as an instrument that's just composed of wood and wire, right?
Yeah.
And Eddie was that guy that really just always felt like he was going to come up with something new that you never could imagine the guitar could do. And that was always, I may not be the biggest Van Halen fan out of all of you guys, but I was always, the one thing I always loved about Eddie was the fact that when he did something, it was always something like, fuck this, I never would have thought of that. And
every album that came out.
And that's his gene. That's Eddie's genius. It's just like, I think I would never have approached it that way. And you have to hand it to him. We would never be the guitarist that we are without Eddie Van Halen. So
I hardly call myself a guitar player, but 10 feet away from me is a 1985 Kramer Pacer Deluxe Candy Apple Red that I own because, and I got lucky. My parents became friends with the Berardis. Dennis Berardi owned Kramer Guitar. And I hounded them for years about, when am I going to meet Eddie Van Halen? And they had a barbecue down at their house one summer in like Homedale, New Jersey, or one of those towns. And all of a sudden they're like, hey, we got something for you. And Eddie Van Halen walks around the corner with this guitar case. And he's like, "Hey, I think this belongs to you, man." And I can't speak.
Wow.
I'm choking. And here they actually give me this Kramer right off the factory floor. Not exactly what I was asking for, but close enough. And like, it's still one of the greatest days of my life. I took it like right to T's house and said, "Turn this into an Eddie Van Halen guitar." We started ripping strings out of it. Like, but that's what Paul said. Everything about the playing songs and the music and the genius of that's been said. I never really realized how influential he was because of like when Paul wrote that little review after he died about, I never would have been who I am if not for what Eddie Van Halen did technically and mentally with the guitar. And I was like, I never even thought about it, but it's so a huge part of it.
Well, he was really he really wasn't, you know, an influential and a really just a generous and humble musician. You know, it's everything that I think it's everything we aspire to be. It's, you know, with the amount of success that you can attain, he was always down to earth and humble about, you know, what all his accomplishments. He loved. Look, at the end of the day, this was a guy who loved what he did, and if you can go out doing what you love to do, you can't ask for anything more in this life, and that's Eddie Van Halen.
Well said.
Well
said.
good.
Very nice. Very well said.
Amen, Paul.
And with that, please starting out
No writer, not that one.
today's segment.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. I think we're done at this point. We've gone over the 2-hour mark.
I want
It flew
more.
by.
I want more. I haven't seen these guys in forever. I want to keep talking.
Let's do it
No,
again.
you don't have. Listen.
6 times a
Stay
year.
where you are. Everybody, just stay where you is. This doesn't have to end now. I'm gonna end it. I'm gonna end it on my Twitch channel. But you guys all just sit tight, all right? So
I gotta roll, guys. I just want to
dude.
say thank you, DJ Staples. Thank you for
Thank
having
you,
me,
Steve.
Brad. All you guys, you know I love you with all my heart and my soul. And what a life! And you know what? I think we're all getting close to the 50 mark or past it. But you know what? We got to keep rocking because the next 50 years are going to be even better.
Hey,
Yeah.
Steve Brown, can you get me hooked up on the Phil Collins fucking like athletic plan?
me too, please.
Sure.
I'm trying to get ripped in my fucking 60 plus years.
Just like he'd say, well, it's 90% diet. You got to go on a raw food diet. Just
Right.
eat nothing but salad. Have one cheat day where you eat Doritos. And you look like Phil, man.
Have you got any pleckies? You have any pleckies for me?
Yeah, you got to use it. Yeah, use metal picks and 13 gauge strings.
And a neck on your guitar that's only for like for another planet. It's like
That's why he looks like that. Yeah, no, but that's it, Paul. It's really simple, and he would tell you that, I'm sure. Eat
the fun. Let me just say that I just want to say that I met him, a couple times, and he came up to our office and stuff like that. And it's funny because we joke about like he's always shirtless, but he literally showed up shirtless.
No, he didn't.
Come on.
It's just look, don't get me wrong. If I could look like that, I'd show up shirtless. If I look like that, I'd be shirtless tonight.
Yeah,
you should have been shirtless. You said you were going to be shirtless before.
I told him once, I said, just tell everybody you got like a skin condition where the cotton shirts hurt your skin. You break out in hives or something. And it works. But Phil's the best. Again, one of the most humble, nicest guys. He's my British brother.
Super dude. And that really, to me, I'll end with this. It's a testament that some of the most enduring rock stars are some of the nicest guys in the business. And Phil Collins is a class act, like really a class act.
Yeah.
Enough said. There you go.
Is,
Steve, where can people see you coming up? What do you got coming up?
Well, the floodgates are open, man. I just got back from doing my first couple shows with the Eric Martin Trickster thing that we do with PJ Farley and Eric Martin doing a Mr. Big Trickster show. Did our first big arena-sized amphitheater stage, but I wasn't prepared to be playing and jumping around in 95-degree weather yet. So man, that was a rough one. And I was singing 1 in a Million, and I thought my throat started closing up. I started
Seeing
getting
colors.
I'm like, oh dude, here it comes. You remember 3? You remember Oklahoma City?
Dude, unbelievable.
Yeah. So, but yeah, just a lot of gigs. Tokyo Motor Fist. Just finished booking. You know, I'm going to be going out in the winter with this Wizards of Winter thing that I've been doing for the last couple of years, and it's great that it looks like rock and roll is coming back. Much to Gene Simmons's chagrin, rock ain't dead, rock is alive. And we're all going to be out there sooner than later. And I'm just happy to be doing what I'm doing. And, you know, the break was really nice to be home with my family for once. And after 30 years of being on the hamster wheel, but I am certainly ready to get back out there doing scissor kicks in front of thousands of people all around the world. Hibbity bibbity bop.
All right. Thank you, Steve. Thanks, man. I appreciate your time.
I love you. Love you, everybody out there.
All right, man. Thank you, Steve. We'll get you. Thank you. Jay, what's going on with you and the Struts? What do you got coming up?
We're going. We start a tour in September that was originally a month, and they just added another month to it. So
welcome back.
U.S. tour, going everywhere, doing Bonnaroo, mostly headliners, a bunch of shows with Shinedown, which is cool because I get to hang with my buddy Andy Meyer. Used to mix Motley and Justin Timberlake and everybody else. But yeah, so we got 2 solid months, which, 3 months ago, I was sitting here thinking none of this is going to happen.
Right.
You know, just because I couldn't see large venues opening. So, you know, for us, like if the festivals fall through, it's like, okay, how we paying the bills on small gigs, and, you know, Live Nation likes full capacity shows, not 40%. So, you know, but yeah, that's that. We're basically in the beginning stages of planning, you know, all of our tech side of getting it done, which is exciting, and everybody's ready to go, obviously.
Very cool.
But I've been sitting here mixing for a year, so I'm warmed up.
Ready to go.
Eric,
what about you, Mr. Stewart? What do you got going on at Dean Guitars and stuff?
Ringing off the hook. If dude's looking for guitars for these tours, everybody that you guys endorse, right? It's probably out of control.
It's crazy. I got to tell you, the cool thing that I'm seeing in the industry, you know, doing what I do for a living at Dean Guitars, is the sales are through the roof. With the pandemic and everything that's been going on for about a year and a half, people are bored. They want to learn something new. Hey, maybe I'll pick up guitar. And I always wanted to learn how to play, you know, learn how to play Smoke on the Water. I don't give a shit. Whatever the hell it is they want to play. Yeah. And it's been unbelievable. We've been unbelievably blessed to be able to stay open through the pandemic. You know, like I said, sales have been fantastic. The problem that we're dealing with is obviously getting instruments in stock because of the shortage of, you know, of goods and services, and, you know, container shortages and everything that was going on with the pandemic. But the bright side is, I think we're going to see a big shift in music. I think we're going to see a lot more musicians. I think we're going to see a lot more bands. You could go that Greta Van Fleet thing that you wanted to get to all eons ago.
Right.
And so work's been really busy. I just, you know, I'm still playing. The last gig I had was December of right before the pandemic hit, and I didn't play out for the whole time for, you know, a year and 4 months. And I just got in a band called Scream Machine down here in Tampa, and it's a cover band, and we're having a lot of fun. We got a lot of gigs booked. The crowds have been great, and it's really challenging music because it's funny because it's like a tribute to 80s hair metal. So we're out there doing all sorts of crazy stuff, and I'm like, oh shit, I better get my chops up. I'm not doing Damn It anymore, you know. I'm not doing freaking Voodoo Doll. Going, you know. So that's pretty much what's going on with me. I've been staying busy and been blessed.
Awesome. James, what do you got? What can the people look forward to, and what do you got coming up?
7 nights a week.
Yeah, pretty much. I haven't
Hardest working man in Jersey.
I haven't stopped during the pandemic. I just kept going, and even when when it was shut down, I broadcasted live from one of these bars. This bar I play at the Blarney Station. Did it every Saturday, and my kids don't feed themselves. We have to feed them. But no, right.
Yeah.
So no, I mean, I'm this weekend. I'm actually taking them camping, but like next weekend, I'm playing with Lifespeed and LBI and the Osprey and stuff like that. And me and Paul are doing Super Trans Am, which is a '70s pretty cool rock tribute band, and it's really great to play with that guy, man. I mean,
Isn't it fun, James?
He's that guy.
Yeah. It really is.
I'm going to see that. That thing looks awesome, by the way. It looks like a really cool setup.
It really is. And it's like Paul will show up. He'll show up with all this, like, all his pedal board is all vintage. It's all the right stuff. And I'm just like, I hate you. But,
awesome.
Yeah. So I'm nonstop. I think I have, like, in July, I think I only have 7 days off, and that's not including the doubles.
Nice.
So yeah.
Very good.
Just working. Glad to be working. Glad to see you. I'm glad to see all you guys too.
Yeah, very nice. And Paul, what do you want to go out with? What do you got going on?
Oh my God! What can how do I top all this? All these guys are fucking so good.
You have the ultimate gear guide you're working on. Get to it.
That's so ridiculous. Yeah, you talk to your fucking redneck fucking people down in Florida.
J3 joined that ranks this year too.
Talking about?
Listen, you're talking to an honorary redneck. I love fucking Skinner and fucking Outlaws and all that shit. That's my fucking
move
jam.
to Jacksonville for that shit.
Eric and 3 are like a mile from each other, I think, down there.
That is right. No, I mean, I can't complain. Everything's been really great. I mean, as James touched on, we are. Oh, look at that puppy! I love the dogs, man.
It looks just like my dog.
Yeah.
He's a silly boy.
Right? Oh, that's amazing. No, we've been playing with James. It's like we've been waiting for. It's been like forever, and here we are playing in the same band together, doing 70s arena anthems, and it's been fantastic. And I think for the first time, I will say that James has found his footing and he's into a role that it really suits him. And I'm loving this trend. Oh, look at that cat!
Here we go.
Dogs and cats.
There's Paul Riario.
There you go. Polyester Paul. That's going to be
a live in concert photo.
Look at that super flare. It's like 1976 live at the fucking Phil.
That's
Miguel, you couldn't have found your footing when I was managing Section 8 and we were shopping at Sony.
Right?
No, I mean, like, this is James. Like, James is really. I have to say that James has really found this is his thing right now, and it's funny. I love it. It's been a blast, and we're having a time of our life. I mean, look at this. At the end of the day, we are playing music amidst a pandemic. There are so many musicians who are sidelined at this point, and yet here we are. We're absolutely one of the few that are on the front lines and playing music and having fun and having a blast doing it. What could be better than that? It's great.
Absolutely.
It's fantastic.
Well, and it's fun to watch for sure. I had a good time this past Sunday in the sweltering heat, but I can't complain. You guys are all wearing polyester. And of course, James wearing the captain uniform, so I really appreciate you guys.
Jason wearing the mayor uniform?
No, the mayor uniform, that's coming, I'm sure. But captain's
2022.
Governor.
He had the
governor.
There you go. But Jason, thanks you too, man, for jumping in and adding to all this. It was nice to I haven't seen you since the cruise. How many years ago was that? Do you remember that at all?
Yeah, you and Kristen were there.
You and Kristen what?
You guys were there. It just blew my mind. It was like, what?
Yeah.
We're on a cruise to Bermuda, right?
That's right. That's
And
right.
I think the boat hit like 30-foot waves the whole way down and back, and everybody was like sick and puking, and it was great.
Yeah. I
Sounds
was
like a
kind of
great
hoping we
time.
stopped in the triangle and I could have came back on my own, but you know, things didn't always go the way I wanted.
You get together.
Anyway.
In a flying saucer.
Hey, so listen, you guys sit tight, okay? Do not go anywhere. I'm going to thank you, though, for everyone for being here. I hope you had a good time like I did chatting with all of y'all. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Don't go anywhere. Sit tight. I'm just going to remove you from the screen real quick. Stay where you are, one at a time. J3, my man. All right, there's Paul. You, me, Paul. All right, there we go. That's it. Everybody that watched, thanks very much. I'll be back next Monday night with a roundtable here on twitch.tv, 8 p.m. with the usual crew, Retro Mix Toronto, Impressions DJ, DJ Mike Harding. Everybody, thank you. And JP McGill, your mom and dad are going to kill you for spending all the money on the bits, but thank you. I'm glad you did. So with that, everybody, thanks for everyone that joined us and watched. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And we'll see you guys all again soon. Take care, everybody. And Anne-Marie, we're going to raid over to Impressions DJs. Please go now. Thank you, everybody.